Hey there everyone, welcome to lesson 3 of theme 8 GCSE Geography. I would like you to go to the lesson PowerPoint that accompanies this video and copy and paste this link into your web browser and pause this video here a moment and go ahead and watch the video that this link takes you to introduce the topic of today's lesson. So that "There's a Baby Orangutan in My Bedroom" video was an advert campaign by the frozen food chain Iceland, and it was actually banned from making it to TV for being, in inverted commas, too political. It certainly raises awareness of the issues surrounding a product called palm oil, and this product has been in the news quite a lot recently for its effect on the rainforest. So we're continuing with our theme of consumerism, the fact that we use and want more and more stuff than ever before, and how that impacts upon the rainforest. We're going to identify links between consumer choices in the rainforest and suggest sustainable ways of managing the impact of our consumer choices. So pause the video here a moment, go ahead and write down today's title, and we'll get started. Okay, so have you ever played that game when you were younger where you would have like a tray of stuff and you'd look at it for a certain amount of time and then it got covered over again and you had to write down everything that you could remember? We're going to play that game. Now I'm going to have to trust you not to cheat because obviously we're not in class together, but I'd like you to put a subheading or spider diagram, Rainforest Products, and I am going to time 60 seconds for you to look at these products from the moment I finish speaking. So just to run through, we've got face wash. These things are all quite obvious here. These fruits, that's cinnamon, by the way. This is body moisturizer, cocoa butter, lipstick, foundation, mascara, shaving gel, deodorant, shower gel. Believe it or not, that's what chocolate looks like when it very first is pulled from the plant. Avocado, coffee beans, wood, this is mahogany I think, perfume, that's vanilla by the way, shampoo and conditioner, okay, so that's a mango by the way I think. So I would like you to, write the subheading and spider diagram. I'm going to time 60 seconds, leaving it on this screen. Do not cheat, do not write anything until I say go. Alright, 60 seconds to memorize. Okay, that's 30 seconds gone. "15 seconds left. 10. Okay, I would like you to try and write down as many of those things as you can remember. Go. Okay, if you haven't finished writing down as many as you can remember, don't unpause the video yet. Leave it paused, so I'm going to go back to the screen. So these are all products that we either directly get from the tropical rainforest or the ingredients in which come from the tropical rainforest. Most of our beauty products, moisturizers, shower creams, shower gels, perfumes, they contain a product called palm oil, and we're going to look at that in more detail today. Direct products, obviously a lot of the fruits, a lot of the spices, a lot of the ingredients here like cocoa beans, coffee beans, and the indirect products, things like rubber from rubber trees, paraffin from oil that is mined in the rainforest, palm oil that's cultivated in the rainforest. So if we drill down a little bit deeper into the idea of palm oil, I'm going to show you what palm oil actually looks like in a moment. It comes from an oil palm, which is a bit like a member of the palm tree family, but slightly different. The thing with palm oil, it's completely flavorless and completely colorless. So you can use it to, for example, coat Doritos so that the powder flavoring sticks to them. You can use it to give a really high shine on nail varnish. It's used for all kinds of food ingredients, beauty ingredients, and you can also use it as a biofuel. So palm oil tends to get demonized quite a lot as a bad product that is causing massive deforestation in the rainforest. And to some extent, yes, that is true. But you can actually use it for so many things. And as a biofuel, it does offer an alternative to burning fossil fuels, which of course would be better for the environment. So its benefits, do they outweigh the disadvantages or not? So I'll show you what palm oil actually looks like. It grows on trees like this. So they look kind of like little miniature palm trees in a way. Now, oil palm trees, they do grow naturally in the rainforest. They're a naturally occurring species, but obviously not in fields and fields and fields of monoculture, as shown in this picture here. Mono means singular. So what's happening is low-income country farmers have realized that they can make a lot of money from growing and harvesting the palm oil. So they're removing the rainforest to just grow oil palms. Now, obviously, monoculture means a huge loss in biodiversity. You haven't got 750 different species of plants per hectare anymore. You haven't got a quarter of the world's animal species living in this area anymore. So it has a huge impact on biodiversity, but it's a very high yielding crop. That means you can grow a lot in a small area. So actually, if it's done sustainably, farmers can make a lot of money from quite a small area. You don't actually have to cut down hectare upon hectare upon hectare upon hectare if you manage it properly. And that's what this symbol is all about. Sustainable palm oil. Any product that's got palm oil in it, they should somewhere have this logo on it if it's been grown sustainably, either by only deforesting small areas or, like I said, it grows naturally within the rainforest. So you can do it as agroforestry, farming within the forest. It can be done sustainably. It obviously then provides an income for low-income families. So farmers can afford to send their children to school, perhaps. Money can be reinvested in community projects. Used as a biofuel, like I've said, no greenhouse gases from burning biofuels. Global demand is going up because, of course, we want it for all these products. And as countries are becoming richer and more developed, more and more people want higher grade products, a wider variety of products such as these. And that means the demand for palm oil is going up. So it's going to mean more money for LIC economies, so they can become more developed. And it has really low production costs. You don't need loads of machinery, you don't need loads and loads of artificial fertilizer. It can be grown perfectly well with natural fertilizers in small areas, so you don't have any runoff contaminating the ecosystem, flowing into the rivers and things like that. So this is what it actually looks like when they pull it down from the trees. And all these little pods, these tiny little seed pods here, when you squash them, it releases the oil. And it can be obviously filtered and then sold. So pause the video here a moment, put a subheading or spider diagram, advantages of palm oil, and you're welcome to summarize these points further if you can, but basically make a note of these points into your book, please. Okay, let's look at the other side, because like I said, palm oil is demonized quite a lot, and to some extent rightly so, because it's not always being done sustainably. It's not always being done through agroforestry, mixing it with existing rainforest. It's not always being done on small, well-managed, crop-rotated areas with natural fertilizers. Sometimes you're getting it on huge commercial scales, and that is when it causes a problem, because you end up with hundreds, sometimes thousands of hectares of monoculture. So because you're only growing one crop, biodiversity now is basically almost down to zero. There won't be the insects and the plants and the animals living in that area that there were prior to it being cut down to grow palm oil. To clear the area to grow palm oil, farmers usually use the slash and burn technique. And as we know, not only does that destroy the carbon sink, so there's no plants to absorb CO2 from the atmosphere, but it also releases all the CO2 that was stored in the rainforest when it's cut down and burned. And those two things obviously are going to contribute massively to climate change. Forest clearance to make way for plantations. A plantation is another word for a large farm, so huge areas of land deforested to make way for palm oil production. That destroys habitats, so you're going to get species extinction as an issue, but also it breaks the cycles of the rainforest that we talked about in theme 5. So you've got no water cycle, no nutrient cycle, increased soil erosion, you've lost the carbon sink. All of these things are going to create knock-on issues, not only at a local scale, but a national and global scale as well. Not only that, once your soil has eroded or the climate dries out, any remaining forest will die and it cannot regrow. It can't restore itself. You've caused permanent damage there. We talked a little bit about trade in theme, I want to say 6, I think. And the fact that often low-income countries rely just on 1 or 2 main cash crops, 1 or 2 main exports. Now, if the global market price of that export changes, and that's your only main export, you've got nothing to fall back on, your economy is going to be hit really, really hard. And in turn, so will the farmers that produce it. So it leaves farmers vulnerable to fluctuations in global markets if they're relying just on monoculture of palm oil. And on a large scale, when it is extensive palm oil farming, you can't rely on natural fertilizers anymore, and you can't do crop rotation to allow the land to rest and restore its own nutrients. So they do then use chemical fertilizers, man-made fertilizers. And when it rains, as it does in rainforest regions, all of that runoff is going to end up in local rivers and contaminate the water supply, not only for wildlife, but for local tribes people and villages as well. Pause the video here a moment and do the same as you did for the advantages, a spider diagram or subheading, disadvantages of palm oil production. Okay, so we've weighed up the whole concept of palm oil, and the thing, I meant to put animations on so it would reveal this bit by bit. My bad. Never mind. We're just going to roll with it. I'm not going to start again. So this whole lesson is about consumerism and the tropical rainforest. So as a consumer, how are we affecting the Brazilian rainforest all the way across the Atlantic Ocean on another continent? The Congo rainforest, the Southeast Asian rainforest, all these rainforests are experiencing similar issues. So those issues are brought about by us. It's our consumer choice, what we choose to buy from the shelves when we are in the shops. And when we choose something, that increases demand for it if we're all choosing similar things. So what the supermarket then does is it passes on to the producers and the companies that produce the product. We want more of this thing because more people are buying more of it. So as demand goes up, the supermarket passes this on to the companies that produce the product, and the companies that produce the product pass that demand on to their producers. So it will be the farmers actually in the rainforest themselves. So Cadbury's, it's got to get its cocoa beans from somewhere. We're all buying Cadbury's off the shelf in our supermarkets. The supermarket tells Cadbury's we need more stock. Cadbury's goes, no problem, we'll make more stock, and tells the producers we need more cocoa beans. So the producers, the farmers, will then cut down more rainforest to grow more cocoa beans. It's the same with any rainforest product. It's all about supply and demand. And when demand goes up, supply needs to go up to meet that demand, and that means more deforestation to grow the crops that you need to make the product, or to rear the meat in the case of beef exports in Brazil, say, for example. Now, what is needed is action at both a local scale, so the choices that we make, and a global scale, the way that the multinational companies generate their products. So the example I was just giving there of the multinational company being Cadbury now has moved to being more fair trade, more sustainable palm oil linked. A lot of large multinational companies are becoming very conscious that we as consumers are becoming more aware of our consumer choices and the impact it has on the environment. So a lot of big companies are starting to move towards making sure that the products they produce are manufactured in a more sustainable way. Because if they don't, we are beginning to stop buying them. because we are becoming more conscious of our impact on the planet, and rightly so. If you copy and paste this link from the PowerPoint into YouTube, it takes you to a video about a company called P&G, Procter & Gamble. They make everything from baby oil to toothpaste. So they are a massive user of palm oil, and they got caught out recently for not using sustainably sourced palm oil. So have a little watch of this video and then come back to this slide. So that video about Procter & Gamble linking to palm oil, linking to it not being sustainably sourced, therefore causing massive deforestation, therefore habitat loss for orangutans. The reason that Procter & Gamble have changed their ways is somebody caught onto this and made a huge advert campaign out of it, raising awareness of how this massive multinational corporation was actually having an impact on the rainforest. And as soon as that campaign was seen by us, by the consumers, guess what happened to Procter & Gamble's sales? They plummeted because we couldn't ethically and morally still continue to buy Procter & Gamble products knowing that it was having that impact on orangutan populations. So in terms of trying to reduce our consumerist impact on the environment, it's a really difficult one. I'm not saying stop buying anything with palm oil in it. I'm not saying stop buying chocolate. What I'm saying is when we go to the shops, we need to make slightly different choices sometimes. Now, unfortunately, at the moment, more sustainable choices tend to be more expensive. Fair trade bananas are more expensive than normal bananas. Fair trade chocolate tends to be more expensive than run-of-the-mill chocolate. Like I was saying before with corn-fed chicken versus soy-fed chicken, there is a price difference. And that's the way it is. A lot of us aren't going to be able to afford to necessarily run completely sustainable lives all the time. But there are some small changes we perhaps could make, and there are ways to tackle the consumerist impact on the environment. So here are some of the ways that we can reduce the damage to the rainforest from consumerist choices. So make slightly different choices. In a minute, I'm going to come on to little logos that you can keep a lookout for on products when you're buying them that mean they have been sustainably sourced, and so you can still continue to eat tuna, you can still continue to have that product that's got palm oil in it, but it's got those things in a sustainable way. Campaigns, like I was just mentioning, charities and organizations and like Greenpeace, for example, will make TV adverts just like the one you saw of the baby orangutan at the start that Iceland were making, to raise awareness, to put pressure on large companies to change their ways. Because, like I said, sometimes the consumer, we are bound by how much money we have. We can't always buy everything sustainable because it's a bit more expensive. Whereas if the large companies started making everything more sustainably, that would bring the price down a little bit. So there needs to be action from the large companies, as well as different choices being made by the mere mortals, by us, when we choose things from the shop shelves. Governments need to get involved as well. Debt for nature swaps. So these are agreements where what some larger companies or richer countries will say to LICs like Brazil is go, right, okay, leave X amount of the rainforest each year completely protected and untouched, and in return we will cancel out X amount of the debt that you owe us. Because quite often the debt that LICs are in, they're never going to be able to pay it back. It's tied aid, like we talked about before, massive interest rates, massive trade deals and catches essentially attached to it. So offering them an incentive basically to protect the environments within their country by writing off some of their national debt. National parks, you can turn areas of certain ecosystems into protected areas where no deforestation is allowed, but you could still make some money from them by allowing something like ecotourism to continue in that area. And making sure that, okay, we can still farm these products, but it's done in a sustainable way. So as you can see here, you might be growing a crop on this area, you might be growing a crop on this area, but you've left a corridor of rainforest in between. And this means that animal species can get from this patch of forest to this patch of forest to share food sources, to breed across a wider spectrum of gene pool, and that makes a stronger species that can survive generation after generation. Agroforestry and things like that. This has an overlap with a lot of the sustainable, where's my arrow? This has an overlap with a lot of the sustainable rainforest management strategies we were talking about in the middle of theme 5. any rainforest strategy that allows people to still make money, but in a way that doesn't damage the forest. So pause the video here a moment and make your own subheading with bullet points or spider diagram. Summarize these ways that we can reduce our consumer impact on the environment. Okay, to finish off, by changing choices we make locally as individuals, it sends a message to larger multinational companies that they have to change their ways, otherwise we're not going to be buying their products. Like I said, I'm not saying only buy stuff that has these labels, because usually it is a little bit more expensive and we've all got to cut our cloth to fit, as my mum says. But I would like you to go away and research these symbols, and for each one, now these pictures are in the handout for this lesson, so if you are able to print them and cut them out and stick them in, great. Otherwise, leave a gap and I can give you a copy when we come back to class. I'd like you to research each one and write a sentence or two about what it does, how it works, how it helps. So as you can see, I've done the top one for us. You'll see this multicolored energy rating on appliances, everything from washing machines to kettles. And you'll also see it when you're older, when you come to buy a home, an energy efficiency rating. The higher the energy rating, the less energy it uses, therefore the less electricity it needs, therefore the less electricity we need from fossil fueled power stations. So it's going to reduce climate change. Plus, as a consumer, it will actually save you money in the long run because it uses less energy, and we have to pay for energy when we use it. This is the FSC. This is Rainforest Alliance, British Red Tractor, Sustainable Palm Oil and Marine Stewardship Council. Have a little Google, write a sentence or two for each one, and maybe just be on the lookout for some of these if and as and when you're out and about. Okay, and that brings us to the end of lesson 3. Any questions? Drop me an email, gleasona@hubcymru.net. We'll move on next lesson to looking at how the rise in global tourism is impacting on the environment. This does link a little bit with the tourism stuff that we did before, but we're just going to go into a little bit more depth on more of a global scale. So looking at particular examples, for example, the impact of tourism on the Great Barrier Reef on the northeastern coast of Australia. So I'll see you soon for lesson 4.